How to teach your teenager to have self-control and keep away from the opposite gender regarding sexual relationships. This question are very loaded, so I'm going to try and dissect. Okay, so I have this thing called Plan A. Plan A is that the parents had inculcated the Islamic value of modesty, privacy, and boundary in the children is accumulative. You nurture the value when the child is young. So let's say when the child is about 16, 17, she would have these values inside her.
So in other words, for Plan A, the ideal approach to teach teenagers self-control, you don't start at teenage age. You start much earlier using the appropriate approaches like modeling, instructions, and teachable moments. We inculcate in our children while they were in their toddlerhood and their early childhood these basic values of modesty, privacy, and boundary.
But the reality is that even though your children have this value, they will be tempted because around them they will see friends having girlfriend. But if this is Plan A, it'd be easier.
This always goes back to communication. You know, the do's really is to remind teenagers the reason we're told to have self-control is really about Allah protecting you. Getting involved in a relationship and that the relationship then can become a physical relationship opens you up to things like an unwanted pregnancy and the outcome of that, you know, can impact your schooling and all those things. You're consumed with this person.
One of the things that I teach my clients are also that you separate the feelings that you like this person and what are the quality. And then if you like the person, it doesn't mean it has to be translated to sexual behavior. You don't have to actualize it. Your heart is precious. Don't give it away too easily. If you hold on to it, don't give it easily. If you like this person, get to know him and see how it develops. Because you fall in love, 3 months later, you fall out of love. You may not like this guy anymore after you get to know him, but if you had been intimate with him, then it's like what? Like nowadays you have a body count and people will hear about body count, then it became like, oh, this girl is very easy.
This is something that I'm going to keep to look forward to. It's important to just remind teenagers also that you're going to be going through a stage where your hormones are going to be kicking off. So, you know, those feelings can become quite strong. So, I mean, it's important though to not find yourself alone in the company of somebody that you like.
For me, I think I will ask them idea because children actually have better idea than us, you know. How do you do that? You know, can you go out in a group? Can you make sure that you want to go somewhere, let's say go to a library, wherever, you make sure they are friends.
And that's the way, and maybe there might be some crossing of genders happening in situations, but you don't want to get yourself into situations of being alone with somebody because that's when, you know, feelings can start to develop, and before you know, it becomes a slippery slope. One way to start controlling your feelings is to fill your time with finding things that you enjoy. So, you know, having hobbies, spending time with family and friends, making sure that, you know, you don't neglect your religious duties and knowledge, because that also, the more you know, is going to help you to maintain your self-control. Fasting.
At this current reality, is fasting the eyes and the mind from sexual content, which is available at your fingertip. If you're not inculcated modesty, privacy, and boundary, when they're young, anything that comes up from your mouth to a teenager becomes very lame. You tell your child, you be careful, you don't have premarital sex. It's like really going to lose them.
Another Plan B is if you have not established the modesty, privacy, and boundary in earlier age, then you don't try to do it at teenage. At teenage age, what you need to do is establish that trust.
So yes, exactly. And again, just like you have to have their heart if you want to influence their heart.
So to me then, it's more important to engage and be a space for the child to talk about it. If the child in let's say this Plan B who's not exposed and you want to teach them the issue about boundary, they're going to do a birthday party and they're going to stay until 12 o'clock. Then as a parent, just say, okay, you know, how are you going to react? How are you going to be careful about safety? You know, make sure that you drink, you finish your drink, make sure that it's really more of the safety issue, because otherwise it is quite lame.
So only after you have established rapport and trust can you hope to give the same messages that we have discussed before. Yeah. So if you see what Firoza and what Enon can contribute, actually we can summarize it in the three aspects of hijab in Islam. Hijab is not just the clothing actually, but it's a concept that comprises of three aspects. One is to dress modestly, and second, to lower your gaze. That means you be decent with your eyes. And thirdly is to avoid yourself being alone with the opposite sex. In the question say how to keep them apart. So from these principles of hijab, it implies to me that the objective in Islam is not to keep them apart actually. There's no commandment to say girls and boys must be kept apart. On the contrary, boys and girls should be made to interact, but we should remove the factors that will make that interaction turn physical and sexual. And these are the reasons why the three aspects of the concept of hijab. So this idea of segregation is actually an interpretation of the requirement of hijab. It need not be so. In fact, I would advocate that boys must learn about girls thinking, feeling idiosyncrasies directly from girls and vice versa, rather than the boys are told by men what girls think. It's not fair and it's also not realistic actually. So the way Islam has done it to make sure that the interaction happens, but the possibility of it turn physical and sensual and sexual is minimized.
Now, I was just going to say, when we take it one step further than even Islam is dictate, it creates a whole other layer of social problems, because the interaction is also where you learn respectful behavior between genders. You learn to understand them without going online and stuff to find out information and things like that. Yeah, it's normal, natural interaction. And, in societies, like if you look at, where they have very strict segregation, the propensity for homosexuality and deviant behavior increases greatly.
Tunisian sociologist who made this study in the 1980s, he highlighted how the strict segregation in his Arab community has resulted in the propensity for homosexuality and closed-door prostitution. And this is in the 1980s. In the 2000s, I'm Emirati writer. She also wrote about the same thing. Cut a long story short, this is something which is the reality actually. The way they segregate girls and boys actually backfire.
Yeah, counterproductive.
To summarize,
how to teach your teenager to have self-control?
We would advise that you teach them to interact under the conditions which Islam gives, so that they will be able to learn from the opposite gender without falling into the trap of physical and sexual attraction.